Everyone. Welcome to Groundwater Talk Live. I'm Tom Ballard, the Groundwater Guy. And just a reminder, you can find us on YouTube at the Groundwater Guy channel or on our Facebook group. You'd have to join the group, but the Groundwater Talk Live group, and we'll live stream into there. And so you can follow us either place, and we can capture your comments there. I'm monitoring the comments, so I'll try to catch that there. On any live stream, there's always a little bit of a lag, so you have to take that into account between the time that I see the comments and respond. There's going to be a little bit of a lag. So okay. Thanks for joining us today. What we're going to talk about today, we got a short show today, but we're going to talk about the EPA's new draft contaminant candidate list number 5, which was actually published on July 19th, 2021, so about a week and a half ago. And it's an interesting list, and I'm going to cover a few of the specifics here and dive into a few of the details, but there's a lot there to unpack, and so I'll provide a link if you're really into it. You can dive into the details, but we'll hit the highlights here. So here's the publication in the Federal Register, actually. So you can see it was published July 19th, and the title is actually Drinking Water Contaminant Candidate List 5 Draft. And so there's a lot of detail here. So if you want to read the whole thing, I'll provide a link to it a little bit later. So the CCL5 list actually includes 66 chemicals. And that includes 3 chemical groups, actually. So there's actually more than 66 chemicals. There's some groups in there, and interestingly enough, it includes 12 microbes, and that's interesting. So we're going to dive into those actually in a little bit more detail. But let's look at the chemicals first here. So the comments on this are due September 17th, 2021. So there's about a month and a half for comments. So if you have any comments on the inclusion list, what was included, what wasn't, and why, you'll want to get those into the EPA by September 17th. Okay, so the chemicals, there's like we said, there's 66 chemicals, including 3 groups. Some of the highlights, there's a bunch of stuff in there, but here's really some of the highlights we're seeing is 1,2,3 trichloropropane or 1,2,3 TCP as it's known is included. That's something that's been a problematic, especially in places like California for quite some time. 1,4-dioxane, which is a solvent stabilizer, is included, and so they're looking at that. Methyl tertiary butyl ether, or MTBE, a fuel oxygenate, is actually included. It has not, the EPA has been operating on secondary standards, but there's been no primary MCL for MTBE, so that'll be included. As expected, PFAS and PFOA are included in this list, and there's been a big push by a lot of states to regulate that, and the EPA is following along with that, and they're going to regulate PFAS and PFOA, so I don't think there's much doubt that's going to make the final list. Manganese is also included. That's had a secondary standard along with iron that's basically been enforced, but manganese will now have a primary MCL, and cyanotoxins are going to be included as a group. So there's a number of those in there as well. So as a group, disinfectant byproducts are actually included, and that includes haloacetic acids, haloacetonitrile, halonitromethanes, iodinated trihalomethanes, nitrosamines, and other, which mainly includes things like formaldehyde. So we're seeing a lot of disinfection byproducts that are proposed to be regulated, and a lot of these have been certainly we've been monitoring trihalomethanes, but looking at some of the haloacetic acid and some of the other disinfection byproducts that can cause some problems is probably not unexpected either. Okay, so the microbe breakdown, we have one protozoa, 3 virus, and 8 bacteria. All these are pathogens, as you might expect. So it's interesting to see the EPA really looking at microbiology, because hitherto we've really focused on the microbiology is really focused on coliform, fecal coliform, E. coli, indicators of E. coli. And E. coli is actually on this list, just to jump ahead a little bit, but we've really focused on coliform as indicators of potential other pathogen. But we know there's a lot more pathogenic microbes out there, and so the EPA is now looking at regulating those. So let's look at those a little bit. The first one is Naegleria fowleri, so hopefully I'm not going to mispronounce too many of these. And it causes amoebic meningoencephalitis, which is usually fatal. It's a protozoa, and it is a nasty thing. Not a lot of cases out there, but when you get it, it's bad and usually fatal. So that's going to be regulated. So really the first protozoa to be regulated. Adenovirus is a virus. It's a frequent cause of pneumonia in the military. We see it popping up a lot on air bases and military bases. So the EPA is going to regulate that as well. Caliciviruses, highly contagious, able to cause large outbreaks, and it's environmentally stable. So it sticks around, and so this is another virus that is proposed for regulation. And by the way, there's more details on all these and symptom matrices and all that are published in the Federal Register, and the other information that I'm going to give you the link to in a little bit. So a lot more information on these. I'm just giving you the highlights here. Enteroviruses are most common cause of meningitis in the U.S. This is also a virus, so that is proposed for regulation. And a lot of these probably not a real surprise to people. Then we move on to the bacteria. Campylobacter jejuni causes intestinal infections with complications, so that can be a nasty guy causing a lot of intestinal disorders. So that's proposed for regulation. And then our old friend E. coli, specifically the 0157H7 strain, is the one that causes sicknesses and even death in people. So we're really diving down deep in this into not only the species but this particular strain here, and the 0157H7 strain is the nasty one. So it comes from animal fecal contamination, usually about 60 deaths per 73,000 cases. So it does have a fatality rate, a known fatality rate, and most people are surprised that it's not already on the list, but it wasn't. We've kind of been using total coliform as basically a proxy to monitor for the E. coli, but I think the EPA has felt like the detection methodology has gotten good enough that they can actually regulate it now. H. pylori causes gastric disorders, 6,500 deaths per year and 1.2 million acute cases. This can get in the water supply, and I've actually known personally people who have gotten this, and it can be quite nasty too. So that's another pathogenic bacteria that the EPA is planning on regulating. Legionella pneumonia, acute pneumonia leading to respiratory collapse. There's an average of a 12% fatality rate, so a fairly high fatality rate from Legionnaire's disease, and we see cases keep popping up around the country. Probably mostly happens in stagnant water systems. It's been shown that sometimes even in hot water heaters, the stagnant water, warm stagnant water, can develop Legionella in there. So that's usually where it comes from, and so that has made the list too for proposed regulation. Mycobacteria messis can cause pulmonary disease in vulnerable populations. That's also a pathogenic bacteria that the EPA is proposing to regulate. Another Mycobacterium VM can cause slowly evolving cavitary disease that resembles tuberculosis. Not quite tuberculosis, but for all intents and purposes, it could be. And so you get the same complications. And so the EPA is proposing on regulating that as well. Pseudomonas aeruginosa mainly causes nosocomial pneumonia. Sorry, butchering that one totally, but it's basically a form of pneumonia. And so Pseudomonas is a fairly common genus of bacteria that we actually find in water supplies a lot, but the aeruginosa variety can cause this pneumonia that definitely creates some significant complications. And Shigella sinoni causes an infection called shigellosis, an intestinal disorder similar to dysentery. It's not dysentery, but once again, it might as well be, because it really causes some really nasty conditions, and so once again, it lives in the water, and it can be a nasty situation. So the EPA is looking at testing and regulating for that as well. Okay, so here is the link actually to the EPA's page that contains the contaminant candidate list 5. There is other information there. There's spreadsheets that cover these the issues with and the health effects of the potential contaminants in great detail. So you can dive into that if you want. It's actually quite a few pages. I've read through a lot of it, and there's a lot of detail in there. So be prepared to be reading and some snoozeworthy stuff. There's discusses the actual methodology, and it also discusses some other bacteria and contaminants that they considered for the list but did not make the list. But it actually goes through the same analysis process and scoring system that it used for things that made the list. Okay, so that's what we've had for you today. I appreciate it. And once again, you can follow us at our YouTube channel, at the Groundwater Guy YouTube channel, or join our group. We're going to be posting more of these up in our Facebook group at Groundwater Talk Live Facebook group. So have a great day, and that's it from the Groundwater Guy.